Howdy ho ho, my good humans. How the hell are you doing? This is Unnecessary Rambling. I'm Brandon Sylvia. I appreciate y'all for stopping by to talk about the most anticipated games of 2024, my personal most anticipated games of the new year. And I'm not going to lie, I did a lot of digging, did a lot of research to try to come up with my most anticipated games of 2024. It's just not looking like a year for me with new video game releases. But like I said, I did a lot of digging, and I went out and found a bunch of AA and indie titles that I thought looked interesting. Because last year I did my top 50 most anticipated games of 2023, which that was not a hard list to come up with. With this, a lot harder. But I went out, did some digging, because I want to share with you all a wide range of video game titles coming out in the new year. So we got 50 that we're going to be going over and ranking in the good old-fashioned tier maker ranking system. So as you see, we got the tier maker all set up and ready to go with the S through D ranking system and the 50 or so games that I will be ranking based off of personal anticipation, personal hype factor, and personal hype factor alone. Let me know down in the comments below what some of your most anticipated games of 2024 are. Let me know if there's any that you are highly anticipating that are releasing in 2024 that I don't have on the list, or especially games that you are looking forward to that you think other people need to be paying attention to. Other people need to be aware of these titles. Shine some light on those if you would like. So obviously with the S through D system, you guys already you get the picture. You S being the top of the top, D being the bottom of the bottom. And without further ado, let's crack this bad boy off with Little Nightmares 3. And Little Nightmares 3, with it being developed by Supermassive, I wonder if people are going to be disappointed, if the DNA is still going to carry over from the first two games to Little Nightmares 3, with Supermassive never making a game like this before that I'm aware of. I don't really know how they're going to handle Little Nightmares 3. I don't know if it's going to disappoint a little bit. I'm going to be there day one regardless, playing it. I love the first two games, and just that Little Nightmares hook of going around solving puzzles, doing some platforming in these creepy yet charming, cozy worlds. Yeah, it's right up my alley. But I am a little bit hesitant to put it high on the list, because as much as I love Supermassive, I don't have a ton of faith in them to be able to deliver on the level that Tarsier, the previous developer for Little Nightmares. I'm not sure I have that level of faith in Supermassive to deliver on what Tarsier created previously. So I'm gonna go C tier. That feels a little bit that feels kind of disrespectful, because if it was the previous developer, it'd be B tier at the lowest. But I'm gonna go C tier. As much as I love Supermassive, they gotta prove it. Prove to me that you can deliver on this style of experience. I'd love to come in here December 2024 and have Little Nightmares 3 moved all the way up to the S tier, nearing my game of the year selection for 2024. So and then shout out to you, Supermassive. Let's see what you can cook up. Black Myth Wukong. I'll go B tier for Black Myth Wukong. It's really going to depend on how much Souls DNA is in this. If it is somewhat approachable, somewhat accessible, and then less frustrating, leaning more towards the character action side of things, then yeah, this will be right up my alley. It's that game that, for the longest time we've all speculated and wondered if it's going to be a real thing, because when you see it, it immediately jumps off the screen at you as just like this holy shit experience that is produced down to the finest detail of these character models, and the world building looks incredible. The graphics are incredible. The particle effects, like everything about it from a technical level looks so impressive, and from a gameplay standpoint. And it finally got a release date at the Game Awards for August 2024. So it does look like this is a real game. It does look like we will be playing it at some point this year. So my excitement grew exponentially after that Game Awards trailer when we finally got like a concrete release date, which August is, a long ways away. A lot can change by now in August, but I am excited for it, hoping it's not goddamn brutally punishing. And next up on the chopping block, we have Holston, and this is absolutely S tier, our first S tier game of the evening. I just saw a trailer of this for the first time not long ago at all, and oh boy, this is doing something different in the horror genre that, like, I would have never even thought of doing what this game is doing with the perspective swapping. You're going from when you're in the exploration, whenever you're just exploring in the world, you're doing your exploration in the old school, original Resident Evil trilogy. You're from that perspective, like the tank-based controls and the static, pre-rendered backgrounds. And then whenever you're in the combat, in the shooting, you swap to the third-person Resident Evil 4 like perspective, over the shoulder, just mowing down zombies, mowing down enemies. And they also have a weird angle where they kind of blend point and click adventure into this game, where whenever you're going through different dresser drawers and trying to find items, it's more of like a point and click manner, how you do your navigating and how you do your investigating, which I think is really interesting from the standpoint of, in a horror game, usually, when you go up to the dresser drawer or whatever, you press X, you get the item. It's like this instantaneous event, but having to kind of rustle around and scrounge for resources and doing it manually, while it could be tedious, we'll see, but that also might add just an extra level of immersion and fear, kind of like if monsters are coming as you're trying to find the resources and you can hear them in the background. Like, there's interesting ways of doing that I'm going to be really curious to see if they can pull that off. But that main hook of, like, my favorite way to explore horror games is through the old school, like we talked about earlier, that PS1 era of exploring different environments in a horror game is so fucking perfect and atmospheric. But the shooting, obviously, that's a little bit outdated, a lot outdated. And to transfer the shooting over to the third person over the shoulder perspective, but keep all the exploration in the old school PS1 feel, like that is a perfect blend. And that's something that I never really even thought of. Definitely keep this shit on your radar. This looks wildly unique. So yeah, Holston, first game on my S tier. And then we have Stalker 2. I'll put this on the C tier, same level as Little Nightmares. I'd put it below Little Nightmares 3, but yeah, I mean, I think the fact that when this game releases, it's supposed to come out in Q1 2024. I think when this game releases, regardless of how good it is, the quality bar, regardless of all that, I think it's just going to be such an accomplishment to see it come out. You know what I mean? And don't get me wrong, it does look good. From what we've seen of this game, I would say it's overall, it's looked pretty solid. I wonder how buggy it'll be when it launches. Once again, I do think people will be forgiving of the studio with the war going on in Ukraine and having to continue development on throughout the war, and the persistence that was shown by the team is commendable. But I do wonder, is it going to launch with a bunch of issues? Like, I could see something to that effect popping up and then it getting cleaned up over the year. But as just a really solid atmospheric first person horror shooter, it's absolutely, it piqued my interest a long time ago. And the fact that it's coming to Game Pass day one, like, I'll boot it up at the very least to check it out for a few hours. If it clicks and I stick with it, that remains to be seen, but I'll at least check it out for a little bit. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Absolutely get your ass on over to the S tier. This, I think, is the front runner for Game of the Year. I think it's definitely up there in that top 3, top 4 slot of games releasing in 2024 that I could see receiving Game of the Year. Just the quality bar that was set with that first game, with remake the first whenever that came out in 2020. That was my first time ever playing a Final Fantasy game, and I jumped into it because of the action combat, moving away from the turn-based elements, and I loved it. I was actually really surprised by how good the story was. And I know a good bit of what takes place throughout the next two games just by, it's such a beloved and discussed story, one of the all-time great stories according to most people from that original Final Fantasy game, a Final Fantasy VII game. So I've heard a lot of the spoilers, but I'm still eager to see, because people who are hardcore fans are kind of like watching through the latest trailers and discussing what's going to change here, what's going to change there. Oh, why is that character here at this moment, and why are we at this world at that moment? Like, so it seems that they're doing enough to keep it fresh and keep it interesting for newcomers like myself and for hardcore fans who have played through the game 152 times. But yeah, I mean, just, the whole idea of releasing complete on 2 discs day one, shout out to Square Enix for that. It's such a rare feat these days for developers to go that extra mile to put that second disc in the box, and yeah, Red Dead 2 did that. There have been a couple games that did that, but yeah, hats off to Square Enix for making sure that this motherfucker is preserved for the rest of eternity. Next up, we have Pacific Drive, another third-party PlayStation exclusive, or second-party, whatever, but non-first-party, non-Sony-owned PlayStation exclusive title for 2024. I'll put it in the B tier. I'll put it above Black Myth Wukong. It's coming in February, so we don't have long to wait for it. It's that game that they're billing as the first ever roguelike, where you are upgrading your car and you have this hub base where you go in. It's like a little garage. You go in, you upgrade your car, and you take it back out, and you're trying to get to some destination. I don't know where the hell you're going or why the hell you're going there, because if I looked outside and saw fucking these supernatural storms taking place, I probably would not be driving, probably would not be heading towards the storm. I'd probably stay my ass at my little hub garage base. But you're going out, you're tackling these storms, you're upgrading your car in your garage to be better equipped to go up against these supernatural storms, these supernatural hazards, and tackle these difficult terrain that you will be exploring in Pacific Drive. So we'll see, man. It's from the concept of it, it at least sounds interesting, and that's enough to get on the B tier for my 2024 list. Plucky Squire, S tier without a doubt. One of my most anticipated indie games of all time. I think I would actually go above Final Fantasy VII and above Halston, but I would keep Halston above Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. But Plucky Squire, I think it's going to be hard to dethrone this as my most anticipated game of 2024. It just screams originality. From the moment you set eyes on this thing, you're like, holy fuck, they're doing that? You're exploring these 2D pages, book pages, and then hopping off into like a Toy Story-esque manner, running around this fully interactable 3D space, and visually it just pops off the screen. It is stunning to look at. But we don't really know anything about its release date. We don't have like a concrete date to go off of, so I'm hoping it launches in 2024. I could see, once again, with this just being so ambitious, that it ends up slipping again into 2025, but it was supposed to launch in 2023. So that makes me think that it's probably further along in development than we might suspect. And so I don't know. I would have a hard time seeing it slip to 2025, despite how ambitious it is for an indie title and for just any video game. But speaking of games that won't come out in 2024, The Wolf Among Us 2, I'll throw it on the S tier. I can't put it at the top of the S tier. It is at the top of the S tier in my heart. Like, if this could come out, if there was a real world where this would ever come out, definitely it would be at the top of the S tier for me. I don't believe it will. I don't think it'll come out in 2024. With Telltale, they had the massive layoffs earlier in 2023, and I just have a hard time seeing this ever launching, if I'm being totally honest. I wouldn't be surprised. I would hate to see it, but I wouldn't be surprised to see Telltale shut down sometime soon. And yeah, it's a bummer because this is the game. The Wolf Among Us 1 is the game that got me back into video games, and I really want to see it come back. I really want to see the continuation of that story and get to chill with Big B and the Beauty and the Beast and Snow White and the fucking Toad and all these different characters. Like, I just want to hop back into that world, man. And I'm preparing myself to be bummed that we never get the chance to. But regardless, if it could in a magical weird world come out in 2024, absolutely, definitively, undeniably in the S tier. But realistically, I'm gonna keep it in the S tier, but I'm not gonna put it any. I'm gonna leave it where it's at. I'll probably keep it at the very very end of the S tier. And then we have Avowed. Once again, the S tier. Avowed, I think, would be, yeah, I'll put Avowed right below the Plucky Squire. And I might even argue Avowed above the Plucky Squire. It's tough because, for one, I have no interest or real knowledge in the Pillars of Eternity franchise. But, you know, them moving, they kind of staying in that world, adjacent to that world. I believe it's actually set in the Pillars of Eternity world, but allowing newcomers to jump into the franchise, moving on from the turn-based combat to real-time action, like, it's much more appealing to me. I thought the powers and abilities that were shown in the Xbox showcase in June were, they looked fucking awesome. You even have guns and shit, and I loved The Outer Worlds. The Outer Worlds was my game of the year in 2019, and this, from a gameplay perspective, has a lot of similarities. And so and Obsidian in general is just one of my favorite teams, one of my favorite developers in the world. You know what I mean? From their best game of all time, in my opinion, Alpha Protocol, to The Outer Worlds. And then even, you know, I didn't really click with Grounded, and I still need to go back and finish Pentiment, but very ambitious, impressive titles for what they were offering. And I just feel like they've been so goddamn consistent as of late. And for them this to be their like first, you know, big AAA title since The Outer Worlds, which was my game of the year in 2019, like, I am very, very highly anticipating it, as long as it stays in that format of, you know, giving you a ton of narrative agency along with the flexibility in the combat trees. And yeah, it's looking pretty damn good in my opinion. And next up we have Rise of the Ronin, and I'll go A tier for Rise of the Ronin. I wouldn't put it in that S tier camp, but I would go A tier for Rise of the Ronin, another third-party PlayStation exclusive, or, you know, non-PlayStation, non-Sony owned exclusive title in 2024. This is, you know, coming from Team Ninja, and it's similar in that Souls-like nature, but thank the good Lord they have goddamn difficulty settings, so I can play through the game, have a good time, not get my goddamn blood pressure all worked up and then fucking slip into an early heart attack. I'm telling you, man, I appreciate, I respect the new trend of making games incredibly goddamn difficult for the people who like that. But boy, my goddamn anxiety, my frustration levels, they can't handle it. I'm getting too goddamn old these days to be playing hard games. I like fucking progression in video games. I want to pick something up, and then by the time I put it down, feeling like, okay, yeah, I made it a couple hours in this game, and, you know, I see the end in sight. I don't understand what the hell happened to making 8-hour single-player games that you just play through. You get a cool story. You mess around with some cool combat abilities. Like, what the hell happened to a good 8-hour single-player, third-person story mode that you play through, you have a good time, and you keep it moving? Honestly, at times it feels like we're just going backwards. You know, like back in the day with the arcades, you make games that are not long at all, but are incredibly goddamn difficult. You don't have to put a ton of content in it, but you put a high degree of difficulty. That way it's hard to ever see the ending. And so even though you don't have 10 hours of content, it would probably take someone 10 hours. That way you can milk them for all their quarters, all their coins. Like, it feels like we're kind of doing that at times with even single player games, where it's like, okay, we got to hit this arbitrary hour count, so we're going to make this game really fucking difficult. And that way you get your 20 hours of game time out of this 4-hour game realistically in terms of the actual beat-to-beat content that's in it. I don't know. I know I'm an old man yelling at fucking clouds, but holy shit. I long for the days of just a good single player experience that you can come home from work, toss on the game, and not want to fucking jump off a cliff after the second goddamn boss fight. But regardless, Rise of the Ronin. This is, like I said, the Team Ninja game. It is still in that Souls lineage, but they got a bunch of weird shit going on here. They got, you're making dialogue decisions in Rise of the Ronin, which could end up going horribly, horribly wrong. I have no idea how that's going to play out, but they actually seem to be caring about the story a little bit. And from the presentation, from the trailers, you can see that the character models don't look awful. That surprised me. That really did surprise me, and I'm eager to see what they have going on with the narrative. And I mean, you got your little wingsuit, your paragliding or whatever the hell they got going on. You got some open world exploration taking place. You got I think some third person shooting in the mix as well. So they got a lot going on with Rise of the Ronin, and it seems that they want to appeal to a broader audience and reach, more players and appeal to a wider demographic with Rise of the Ronin, with the difficulty settings and all that shit. So sign me up, man. Anything to not fucking not get frustrated and during a boss fight and end up sticking a damn smashing a goddamn PS5 controller through my fucking forehead and then end up walking around like a fucking unicorn, but with a controller for the horn. Not really sure where I was going with that one, but hey, at last. Flintlock Siege of Dawn, another Souls-like title. This we haven't seen much of this. I'm going to throw this in the D tier. We haven't seen much of this in a while. It was supposed to launch. It was definitely supposed to launch in 2023. It was at that Xbox showcase in 2022, June 2022, where they said everything at the showcase was going to launch by June 2023. Obviously, it didn't meet that date. And as of right now, I think they're saying that it's supposed to launch Q3 2024, which doesn't really... That doesn't leave me expecting that it will realistically launch in 2024. So wouldn't be surprised to see it slip to 2025. But it is a cool looking, once again, Souls-like title. We get 5,652 of them each year. But hey, there's another one for you. Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. The only reason I left this on the list was like sheer curiosity. Because I think we're at the point where, like, I want to say, okay, this is just going to be a huge disappointment. But a part of me goes, is it possible for this to even disappoint? Like, if it's just mildly competent, because Rocksteady, we know they are one of the most talented dev studios of all time. Before Suicide Squad, we gotta keep in mind, they made the best superhero games of all time. You know what I mean? And before Spider-Man, Insomniac Spider-Man, they made, for sure, Arkham City and Arkham Asylum were the two best superhero games ever before Insomniac Spider-Man. So there is a pedigree there. It's not like this is a chump change, no-name developer trying to create a superhero game for the first time. This is a prestigious studio. It's such a shame what WB has turned such a talented team into. But I wonder if there's a competent enough gameplay loop in here and just a decent enough story where you can avoid the mind-numbing service bullshit and get something okay out of the story. That's like my main, and I mean, it's a D tier, no doubt about it. Like I would even put Flintlock before Suicide Squad, but that's the only reason there's just a modicum of interest, a modicum of anticipation for this game for me, enough to include it in the top 50. I just wonder if you can bypass the bullshit enough to get something that's just okay at best. I'm not expecting good. I think there's just too much rotten at the core with this to expect like a good game. But I wonder if I can just get something okay out of it. Pick it up for $10 at Black Friday and get something okay out of it. But to move on to a game that I am damn excited about, Resistor. I'm going A tier for Resistor. I'll put it above Rise of the Ronin. This looks so unique to me. It is seemingly the first ever racing game that actually gives a shit about its storytelling. Or at least one of the first racing games that ever gave a shit about its storytelling. And I mean, even from the presentation, from the character modeling to the animation, like you can really tell that they want you to be compelled and engaged by this narrative. And the actual racing that's taking place is more akin to your arcadey Burnout style titles, and supposedly you can make decisions and shit in this story about, you know, who you're gonna kind of partner up with during these races, and just giving you a hand in shaping the story of a racing game is such an interesting hook. And I remember reading that they said that the developer said they were inspired by like Final Fantasy VII, and then just some really unique inspiration for the developer of a racing game. This looks totally unique to me, unlike really anything I've ever seen before. So definitely shout out to it. I wanted to put this on anybody's radar who might not have heard of this game, because honestly, I haven't heard much of it until pretty recently. They seem to be kind of marketing this a bit more as of late. So I'm hoping that more eyeballs can, you know, be drawn to this thing, and that more people can get invested, because it looks truly unique. And next up we have Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2, and you know, this swapped developers recently, and then the Chinese Room is making it now, and they're known for like Dear Esther and those kind of walking sim style games. It's really what we've seen of it so far from the re-reveal, I guess you could call it, hasn't left me all that impressed at all. It's just much more combat centric in the gameplay that we've seen, which I don't think many people really care about that with Vampire the Masquerade. So I don't know. It's just, to me, it's one of those games I need to see more on. So I think for that, I'll kind of throw it in the C tier, just out of curiosity, if they keep intact. Because the gameplay that we saw before from the first developer, I forget the name of the first studio that was taking a crack at it, but you saw a lot of different narrative trees and dialogue options and different ways of shaping your character's story and having a hand in that. Like, that's the shit that I think Vampire the Masquerade Bloodline fans are expecting from the follow-up, but all we've seen is like these little combat arenas that, I don't know, they don't even look that good, in my opinion, with the re-reveal. But hey, I'll hold out some hope, just kind of hoping that we get a good story trailer where you see the weight of your decision making sometime soon. And next up we have Silent Hill 2, and that's kind of a similar theme there with Bloodlines 2, Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2, of people just not trusting the developer with Bloober. But I don't know, I'd go B tier. I don't think Bloober, I think Bloober can handle this. The thing about Silent Hill is, or the thing about Bloober is, they've never really made combat. And Silent Hill, if they can just make competent combat, they'll be fine, because the atmosphere is already there. The story is already there. They can't really screw that up. All that they could realistically screw up, unless they tinker with it, if they try to change shit, then of course that would be a disaster. But all they could really screw up is the combat. But I don't know, are Silent Hill fans expecting like great combat from any Silent Hill game ever? I look at Alone in the Dark as a comparison, which I think we'll talk about later. Yeah, I got that on here. We'll talk about that in a bit, but I look at that as like a fine comparison. If it's just that level of competent in the third person shooting and shit, I think this should be okay. I do wonder, with all the there's a lot of weird, I don't know about controversy, but just weird vibes going on, where Bloober kind of called out Konami on Twitter. I'll try to find a clip of it, or the image of the tweet, to throw it in the B-roll here so you can see it. Just very passive aggressive energy, and I don't know if that's an indication of anything, but I mean, we know the Silent Hill experiment it hasn't gotten off to a great start, I would say, with Silent Hill Ascension being seemingly one of the worst games of 2023. So I'm hoping that there's like no intentions behind the scenes to kind of pause this Silent Hill train, because I'm interested in this. Did I put the other No, I don't have the other Silent Hill game on there, but Townfall, that's coming from what is it? No Code, the developer of Observation, and I'm forgetting the other game that they're known for. They're known for another horror title as well, but I'm curious to see their take on Silent Hill, and I think this is an IP that can be explored with different talented horror developers cranking out games. It's so bizarre that Konami turned down. I believe Konami turned down Supermassive. Like, that's the perfect fit. What are you doing? Especially if you want to get like that Silent Hill Ascension experience, go through Supermassive. What the fuck? But anyways, Silent Hill 2, I'll put it in the B tier. I would put it above Black Myth Wukong just out of sheer curiosity. I'm hoping the best for Bloober. I'm hoping the best for that franchise to return to some significant degree at some point. Moving on into Dragon's Dogma 2. And man, for this one, yeah, I think I would go B tier. It's not a game like the first game didn't really sing to me. It didn't really click with me in any big way. I played a little bit of it. I thought it was cool, but it's like, okay, it's a little bit janky, a little bit wonky, a little bit rough around the edges. But I don't know. I might just jump into Dragon's Dogma 2, skip the first game. I doubt the story is some like significant carryover from, I think Dragon's Dogma 2 released in 2012 or so, if I'm not mistaken. So are you going to really continue the story 10 years later? I'm assuming it's more of a GTA Final Fantasy situation where it's a totally brand new story. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but Capcom has just been on such a goddamn hot streak lately that I'm almost on board with anything that they put out, regardless if I have any built up knowledge or history with the franchise that they're working on. I'm just like, dude, they're on such a high, outside of Exoprimal. Obviously, I'm not going to play that, but they're on such a high that I'm kind of just intrigued for all their shit. So Dragon's Dogma 2, I'll put it below Black Myth Wukong, but I'm definitely curious. And I think that in a year so light as 2024 is, I could realistically see Dragon's Dogma 2 being like nominated for Game of the Year at the end of the year. Especially, like I said, Capcom is just so fucking hot right now. I could see this being a lot bigger than a lot of people are anticipating. Oh boy, Dragon Age Dreadwolf. I don't know, man. I mean, fuck it. It's S tier. Like, undeniably it's S tier, but it's not going to release in 2024, where we're going to get our first look at gameplay summer of 2024. And I assume that'll only give it a 6-month window from the time we first see gameplay to the time it's released. I mean, there's just, yeah, there's no way. There's no fucking way we are getting Dragon Age Dreadwolf launching in 2024. But if it does, absolutely, positively, without a shadow of a doubt, it is in my S tier. I mean, that idea, if they're able to execute on that fundamental idea of making God of War Ragnarok inspired combat, but in, a Dragon Age world with that BioWare level of agency with the narrative and the dialogue trees, like, sign me the fuck up. Sign me up day one. I played through Dragon Age 1 and 2 a couple years ago. Loved both of them, but I do think that that's the proper step forward for the franchise. If you can have that level of combat, that dynamic real-time combat, along with the BioWare storytelling that we know and love, holy fucking shit. I mean, you're talking about a juggernaut smash hit. And yeah, I'm hoping for the best. I'm hoping with EA, we did see that Jedi Survivor got revealed, or was it revealed for the first time at the Game Awards in 2022 and then came out a few months later. So EA kind of has been, I don't know, they're hit or miss, because Dead Space, that got announced quite a while before it launched. Skate has been announced forever. Never mind. I'm talking out of my ass, but I'm hoping that we can get Dreadwolf to launch in 2024 after we see gameplay of it for the first time in June or July or whatever. But I'm not expecting that whatsoever. But if it did come out, it would definitely be in the S tier for me. I kind of got this other section over here after Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. We got The Wolf Among Us and Dragon Age Dreadwolf. They're just kind of off to the side. I don't believe they'll actually release, but if they do, I got to keep them in the S tier because yeah, those would be some of my most anticipated games of the year if they actually released in this calendar year. Hellblade 2 Senua's Saga, I'll go A tier for that. I think I would go S tier if we saw any indication that the puzzle solving was going to be cleaned up quite a bit. I think I would probably go S tier. It's one of the best looking games of all time. It's stunning from just a photorealistic standpoint. The best character models in gaming ever, potentially, when this thing releases. I think that what they do with audio is so impressive, so immersive. It's just really going to come down to, is the puzzle solving cleaned up? Because that was the only thing that knocked me out of finishing Hellblade 1, was the puzzle solving was so tedious, so boring, so monotonous. And if that's cleaned up, and this is kind of the next big step for Ninja Theory, in kind of solidifying themselves as a AAA mainstay. I know a lot of people like to draw that Naughty Dog comparison. I don't think that's fair per se, but if they're aspiring to those kind of levels anywhere in that sphere, and they're able to even get close to that with Hellblade 2, with the new Microsoft budget attached to it, then yeah, I absolutely sign me the fuck up. And I mean, I'll be there checking it out, playing it on day one, regardless, just with it being on Game Pass. But I'm hoping it's cleaned up quite a bit. That trailer that we got at the Game Awards, that spoke to me a lot more than I thought it was going to. That looks tight. The combat looks crunchy. Having the companion combat going on, the little tag team maneuvers taking place and shit. Like there's dodging the projectiles. There's shit in that trailer that really, really stood out to me in a positive way. So yeah, I'll go A tier. I would go for its ranking. I would go above Rise of the Ronin. And I would still keep Resistor at the top of the A tier. And next up, we have The Lost Wild. And this is a Annapurna published title where it's a first-person horror game where you are a investigative reporter. And you are stranded on this island or whatever, and then you're surrounded by the dinos. You got dinosaurs all around you. You're trying to avoid them big bitches and stay alive. They're pitching it as like a really cinematic, narrative-driven experience, and you can see that from the trailer. The only thing is they're saying late 2024, early 2025 for the release date. So that obviously means 2025. But regardless, I'd have to put this in the C tier. It's somewhere in that camp of other C tier games where it's like I need to see a little bit more of it actually running. But from what I have seen, definitely it has definitely piqued my interest, no doubt. And I mean, for its placement in the C tier, I would go above Bloodlines 2, and I would go above Stalker 2 for sure. It's very, I'm very, very interested in seeing more of this title. Hades 2 is coming to early access in 2024. I'll obviously be waiting for the full release, but still, I enjoyed the first game a good bit. I'm not the craziest about the roguelike structure, but no doubt I'll put it in the C tier. Once again, just curious to see more from that developer. And, Supergiant, with them, this being the first revisit they've ever done, the first kind of franchise that they're seemingly creating here with Hades, the first sequel that they've ever made, I guess is the proper phrasing I was looking for there. I'm definitely curious to see where they expand. I'm curious to see what new additions are on offer with Hades 2, and that's actually kind of compelling to me, because with new games, the whole game is the new experience that you're getting. The new additions, it's the new game. Here it is. It's brand new. But with this sequel, it's like, okay, well, you knocked it out of the park with the first one. That seems like a daunting task to try to iterate on that, to try to improve that formula that a lot of people already considered fucking perfect. So we'll see what they do here. And I think that C tier is like the perfect camp of games where it's like, I'm very curious to see what you do. I'm very curious to see more of your game. We haven't seen much at all of Hades 2, but definitely curious to see a little bit more of it. I would put it below Yeah, I would put it below Bloodlines 2. I think at the bottom of the C tier is perfect for Hades 2. Star Wars Outlaws. Here we go. Absolutely S tier. I think it'll get delayed into 2025, and knowing Ubisoft, they'll launch this thing right next to Grand Theft Auto 6, and it'll get decimated. But in this perfect world that we're creating, if it launches in 2024, fucking for sure S tier. Combining, like I talked about, Grand Theft Auto, you have the wanted system in Star Wars Outlaws, combining that with a little bit of narrative agency, making some decisions, and then that Han Solo vibe as you're a scoundrel, as you're out there, you're not necessarily the good guy. You can make somewhat morally questionable decisions and actions, and then having the space combat and being able to take off into space, and I'm probably, I assume, customizing your ship to some degree, and then having the land bikes and all these different vehicles you can traverse the open world with. Like, there's so much going on there, along with the third person action adventure combat, the stealth based gameplay, the third person shooting. It just looks so fucking good. So fucking good. But take your time, let this thing cook. Let's not launch it and have it be a total buggy shit show. Just also don't launch it in 2025 anywhere near Grand Theft Auto 6. You know what? Let's readjust this list a little bit. Let's assume that everything we have here is going to launch in 2024, because this is not an accurate S tier. If I'm being totally honest, Star Wars Outlaws would be number 1. Dragon Age Dreadwolf would be, actually, The Wolf Among Us 2 would be number 2. Dragon Age Dreadwolf would be number 3. Like I said, I know these games will not come out in 2024. I have no expectation of them releasing in 2024 whatsoever. But if they do, those 3 are my top 3 most anticipated games of the year, at least that we've talked about so far. And I think I will keep Plucky Squire above Avowed, just because of Avowed's attachment to Pillars of Eternity. I don't know how invested they're expecting the player to be into Pillars of Eternity. I'm assuming not at all. I'm assuming it's going to be wide open to new players, but that tie, that association to Pillars of Eternity would keep Plucky Squire above Avowed for me in 2024. So yeah, that's going to be the S tier. Had to do some readjustment on the fly there. All right, and now we have Replaced. It's been a hot minute since we've seen this thing, the 2.5D action title that's coming exclusively to Xbox and PC, coming day 1 to Game Pass. I would go D tier for this. It's not something I'm dying to play, but I do love the cinematic presentation. I think what they're doing with the lighting in the trailers that we've seen is absolutely fantastic. It is a smaller developer and a smaller publisher working on this title, and so it doesn't give me all the hope in the world that it'll launch in 2024, with us not seeing much of it at all in the last year or so. But once again, this was a game that was at that 2022 showcase where all the games were supposed to launch in that year time span. So that would lead me to believe that Xbox had a slightly deeper look at this title to be able to confirm that it was fairly far along in development. So I am looking forward to it. I'd put it at the top of the D tier. I'm for sure more interested in it than Flintlock and Suicide Squad. Now we have a really, really odd one. Alters. This is a sim game combined with a narrative choose your own adventure style experience. And the main hook is fucking wild. You're on this abandoned planet and you have some access to cloning technology, and you're able to clone yourself and like put yourself to work and to like help ensure your survival. But you have all these ongoing relationships with yourself, these different forms of yourself that you cloned. And those relationships can branch off into, different directions, negatively, positively. And you have to manage all of these different versions of yourself to keep everybody well fed and alive, and really, really fucking bizarre concept. And I mean, just that blend of these two genres that do not go together at all, while having great character models and a really, really high production value, seemingly. Like, This could be something. This is one to keep your eye on for sure. Yeah, I think C tier once again, just a game that I need to see more on. But this would be, yeah, this would be above everything except Little Nightmares 3. And I just have built up investment from the first two Little Nightmares games. But in terms of interest, in terms of intrigue, this is very high up there for me. And next up, we have Towers of Agasaba. And this one, I think I gotta throw it in that same C tier. I'm just curious to see more. It's combining, once again, two very different genres. A open world Breath of the Wild, Horizon inspired third person adventure, and then also a farming sim. So once again, two very distinctly different genres being combined into one game. I'm more curious than anything just how much of the farming shit can I avoid, and how much can I just like go in and experience the story with this open world and the third person adventure experience. Can I just get that and avoid the farming? That's really my main and only question, because it's absolutely fucking beautiful. The world is stunning with this Towers of Agasaba trailer, and it was at that PlayStation showcase in 2023. It stood out to me, but I definitely need to know more. And next up, we have Still Wakes the Deep. And we talked about the Chinese Room earlier with their development on the upcoming Vampire the Masquerade game. But they're also working on Still Wakes the Deep. And this is much more up their alley with the kind of walking sim background with the Amnesia game and the fucking Dear Esther and the stuff that they've made before. This seems more in that lane, but it has a real interesting hook with the story. You're an oil rig worker and something goes wrong. I think a massive storm hits and it the oil rig's all fucked up and you're trying to keep all your crewmates alive. And there's like a real focus on the dangers of platforming, and you're running across and trying to make these jumps and time these jumps perfectly, at least, from what we've seen in the trailer. And I think that when you look at Dying Light, and the sense of dread at times when you're trying to make those long ass jumps and you're just hoping to God that your arm's going to be able to reach that ledge, like that parkour, that first person parkour experience can be really immersive and actually kind of fucking spooky. So I hope they're able to nail it. Once again, day one to Game Pass, so I will be checking it out. I would go, yeah. I mean, once again, I think I would have to go C tier. Actually, I think we gotta sort the C tier out a little bit. I would go Still Wakes the Deep above Stalker 2, right below The Lost Wild, and I would go Hades 2 below Towers of Agasaba. Next up, we have another game that I do not anticipate releasing in 2024 whatsoever, but if it does, abso-fucking-lutely S tier, and that is Crimson Desert. This is that trailer that we got from Gamescom, if I'm not mistaken. It just looks ridiculous. It looks ridiculous. I'll have it running. I don't even know what words you can really say. Final Fantasy, Ghost of Tsushima, Breath of the Wild. Fucking, it's a catch-all for your open world, third-person action-adventure games. You got some Red Dead vibes going on in there, just going off, exploring, riding a horse, doing some fishing. Fucking crazy amount of variety in this trailer. I'll try to chop it up to get all the most ridiculous parts, but it just looks unbelievable. It looks far too ambitious to launch in 2024. And I know that Pearl Abyss, the developer, they also have that Black Desert online game that's constantly running for them, the MMO RPG that seems to be making them quite a bit of cash. So if they're able to parlay that cash into this passion project and create one of the most ambitious games ever made, fucking more power to you. But we all kind of know that when we see something this ambitious, we got to be a little bit skeptical. Regardless, if it releases and it's talked about and received well and is critically lauded as a solid title, not totally broken at launch, because that's the thing I worry about when looking at it. It's like, is this is it possible for this game to just be a total fucking mess when it launches? If it can somehow avoid all of those traps, then abso-fucking-lutely sign me up day one. S tier. Absolutely S tier for Crimson Desert. I'd go above Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, but I would put it right below Holston. Harold Halibut. I think I'm saying that correctly. This fucking thing, boy. A tier. For sure. A tier for old Harold. When you look at this game, you look at something that truly it doesn't feel, it truly is handcrafted. And I say, this game, this handcrafted experience, I say that all the time when talking about games, but I don't mean it literally. Like these characters were literally handcrafted. Like they were physically built, and you have these claymation characters running around on screen, and it's unlike anything I've ever seen before. Unlike anything I've ever seen before in video game art. It is so stunning to look at just from the oddity angle of it. And I mean, this art style isn't totally unfamiliar in general, but it is totally unfamiliar in video game form. And just my brain's like trying to process how they could get this to function properly in terms of the game design. Now that could be the issue, that they could run into some real hurdles in terms of the moment-to-moment game design. And I mean, this thing has been in development for quite some time, so maybe they did run into quite a few hurdles, and now they're finally over some of those roadblocks, hopefully. But yeah, A tier, undeniably. I would put it above the Rise of the Ronin. I think I would put it, I would put it above Senua's Saga as well, just in terms of pure interest alone. Greedfall 2, Spiders with the sequel that I never thought we would get. A tier, man. A tier. I really enjoyed the first Greedfall game, and I'm hoping that this launches in 2024. We haven't seen a lick of gameplay for it, so it's hard to get super excited for it, but in an age where we do not really get BioWare games at all, there's just a longing for that style of experience, and I think they offered it up in a big way with the first Greedfall game in 2019. And if they can build on that, if they can polish up the combat a little bit, if they can, maybe get a slightly larger budget, it wasn't the world's greatest character models and shit like that. The open world traversal wasn't incredibly enjoyable, but the roots of the story were strong. The character focus, the narrative focus was strong, and yeah, so I mean, it would be in the A tier for me. I think I would probably go above The Last Ronin, but I think I would put it below Senua's Saga, Hellblade 2. Hellblade 2 just looks to be doing something on a technical level that is like must-see appointment viewing. Bounty Star, a bounty hunter game where you're playing as a mech. Shit, yeah, that's interesting to me. Although, yeah, this is the one that they had the farming sim elements in this shit as well. So similar to Towers of Agasaba, I'll put it above Towers of Agasaba. Just it is a little bit more visually striking, which Towers of Agasaba looks good, but this looks more distinct to me, and that hook of a bounty hunter mech character, a narrative driven bounty hunter mech game, like that's cool as shit. The only thing is, can I avoid the farming sim elements and just play the game? And I think there's also base building and shit. Like, let me avoid that stuff and just play the game and play the story. If I can do that and avoid the other stuff, then for sure this would probably climb up to the B tier. I think this is another one. Day one Game Pass. So I know people have different opinions on what they like to see day one drop on Game Pass. For me, it's this style of stuff. I don't really need the big heavy hitters. This style of stuff, the indies, the double A's, the kind of weird projects, that's the shit that I like to see on Game Pass, because it's like, okay, I'll just go dabble with it for an hour. If it's not good, I jump out of it. But unique experiences in general, I like to see those rewarded, and get a nice little bag from Microsoft, and also just allow players to just put more eyeballs onto different projects, different games that people might not have ever even known about if it hadn't been for Game Pass. And actually, this next title as well, Dungeons of Hinterberg, I think is another day one Game Pass title. if I'm not mistaken. And it's another one that'll go in the C tier. It's a game I'm curious about. Don't know much about it at all. I think the last time I saw it was at the Xbox Showcase, and it looked cool, had a solid art style. I do unfortunately think it's a roguelike, so bummer in that department, but that's the joy of Game Pass. My little $15 a month, I gotta go dabble with it for a bit, get annoyed, and I'm about to slam a goddamn Xbox controller into my forehead. I prevent myself right at the last minute after I've struggled with this boss fight for fucking 862 hours and my blood pressure is 200 over 112, and I stop myself from slamming the controller into my head, and I gently put it down and say, okay, it's okay. I'm only paying $15 a month for this shit. I'm going to go and meditate for a minute. I don't even know what the fuck I'm saying at this point. I, the Inquisitor, speaking of our Lord and Savior, I, the Inquisitor, I'm going, once again, I hate to be so redundant, so boring here, but I, the Inquisitor, I'm going C tier. The hook of I, the Inquisitor, the main narrative hook, sure is unique, sure is unlike anything I've ever heard of in video games. You are, well, not you are, but I guess you are. You're in a world where Jesus, instead of being crucified and killed on the cross and come back, yada, 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 instead of that taking place, as he's nailed to the cross, he rips out the damn nails and he goes on a revenge spree full of hatred and fury and anger, and he goes out killing all of the non-believers, all of the dissenters, just starts going on a rampage. And there's something about that where just out the gate, I'm like, that's fucking ballsy. That's a ballsy angle to take with the story. So I'm immediately just compelled to see where all they go with that, and just the lore and kind of ripple effects, be having a world where that is the main narrative, and then what could have occurred years, and because I think you're playing like 1,000 years after Jesus goes on this revenge spree. Like, what were the ripple effects after that? What do people believe now? How is society operating with this newfound knowledge? Like, I'm really curious to just see how they build the world around that. And listen, when you look at the gameplay, I'll obviously have trailers rolling for pretty much all of the smaller games. That way you can get more exposure to them. But when you look at the gameplay, you definitely, it's not the greatest looking game in the world from a visual standpoint, but the oddity factor. I love odd experiences, and I think I'm there. I think I'm going to check this thing out when it launches. I got to see what they have going on with this story. And you see some parts where you're doing some puzzle solving and you're doing some investigating and shit. And I'm hoping that stuff isn't totally tedious, totally monotonous and boring, but you do see a little bit of combat. I think you're able to make some decisions in the narrative and stuff. So they have a couple components here that have me intrigued enough to keep my eye on it. I'll put it in the C tier. I'll go above Towers of Agasaba, right below the Bounty Star game, and I didn't even Dungeons of Hinterberg. Yeah, I'd put that below Hades. Has a cool Hi-Fi Rush kind of Sable-esque art style combination of those two. Has a cool cartoony look to it, but yeah, hate roguelikes. Ghost Bike, another day one Game Pass game that I'll throw in the C tier out of sheer lack of knowledge. I watched a couple trailers of this thing. Actually, I think there was only one trailer that I could find. But the main hook here is that you're a cyclist and you're riding your bicycle between like the world of the living and the world of the dead. So I don't know, maybe a chill little bicycle simulator with some slightly horror vibes to it. Sure, I'll check it out for a little bit on Game Pass. I would put it, I'll put it above Bounty Star. Why not? It doesn't seem to have any farming sim systems that I know about, so that alone puts it above Bounty Star for me. Dustborn. This is a Quantic Dreams published title and seems to be, in that vein, like a lot of the games that I enjoy. Narrative leaning, giving you some agency in the plot, making some decisions. It also has like a brawler angle to it, and I think that alone it is unique in these style of games that are trying to offer up branching dialogue options and shit. You often don't even see combat, so that alone makes it stand out as something unique to me, with the little Road 96 angle that it seems that they have tied in there. One I'll definitely keep my eye on. What I've seen from it so far doesn't like blow me away totally, but I would put it, I'll put it right below Hades, right above, I'll put it at the bottom of the C tier. Next up we have Outcast, and I'm gonna go B tier for Outcast, man. This shit looks really fucking cool to me. It's essentially, you have some Dark Void vibes going on, where you have your jetpack, and then you're going around kind of doing some platforming and shit, some exploring with your jetpack, and then you have some Uncharted DNA in there as you're doing some climbing and exploring, and even some third person shooting, and then it'll cut to a part of the trailer where you're riding a goddamn dragon. It's like, what the hell? It looks incredibly ambitious coming from, the AA space. It's one that I probably would wait for reviews on before jumping into it, because I mean, it is a $70 game, but undeniably I'm really, really curious about it. So I'm going to put it at the bottom of the B tier. And next up we have Sandland, Akira Toriyama's anime brought to life in video game form. The combination of Mad Max and fucking some Twisted Metal energy in there. You have mech combat going on, a third person action adventure elements to it. Like this looks fucking awesome. This looks really, really cool. I'll go B tier for Sandland. I'll go above Dragon's Dogma 2 and right below Black Myth Wukong. As of late, Bandai Namco's been really knocking it out of the fucking park with these anime or anime inspired titles, with Dragon Ball Z, Kakarot in 2020. Absolutely loved that. With the One Piece game, One Piece Odyssey, that came out last year, or 2022, 2023, whenever it came out, that seemed to do pretty damn well. And then, the anime inspired titles, I guess you would call it, with like Scarlet Nexus and I don't know if you would consider it in the same camp, but Tales of Arise, like they all, Bandai Namco's been knocking it out of the park, and this I think will be another big hit for them. Stellar Blade, Bayonetta, but not having to play on the Switch. Get your ass on up to the A tier for sure. I really, really want to check this out. I was excited to see that I think it was in a PlayStation blog post that they were talking about this as one of the big PlayStation 5 exclusive titles to look forward to in 2024. So it does seem like it will release in 2024. We got a good bit of gameplay on this thing. It was supposed to release in 2023, but I'm happy to wait for some time in 2024. And PlayStation seems to be really gearing up for a strong year of exclusives outside of their first party development teams, which, I don't love that it seems to be such turmoil going on from a first party capacity, but I'm glad that they're filling up that lineup with the, different third-party partners. But yeah, Stellar Blade, I would definitely go above Rise of the Ronin, but I don't think I'd put it above Greedfall 2. Alone in the Dark. This is one I'm just excited that it's coming back. I can't say I'm overly excited for Alone in the Dark to check it out, but I'm just pumped that it's coming back, and for that alone, I'll throw it. No, I'd put it in the B tier. It'd be above anything in the C tier for me. My only worry, my only hope for Alone in the Dark is that it releases before Embracer just totally implodes. And we all know that is impending doom, that is not, Embracer is not long for this world. I wouldn't expect, at least. So Alone in the Dark, I hope you come out before Embracer implodes. Same thing with fucking Outcast, and there's probably some other games on here that I'm not seeing right now, but I'm sure there's some other Embracer titles on here that I'm hoping release before the company totally fucking implodes. But yeah, I would go bottom of the B tier for Alone in the Dark. I haven't been blown away by what we've saw. I do think, like, in terms of character models and in getting some decent, Hollywood names to come, David Arbor and Jodie Comer to lend their likeness and to do the voiceover work for the two main characters of the game. I think that at least shows that they care about the story in some capacity. Gameplay looks a little bit wonky, a little bit janky, but yeah, I mean, I'm cool with it being at the B tier, but I wouldn't put it above anything in this tier. By Sweet Carol, abso-motherfucking-lutely, this is A tier for me. This is coming from one of the creators of Remothered, and once again, just from an art style perspective, when you look at this thing, it is unlike really anything that you see in the video game space. It's this Disney inspired, old school Disney inspired artistic vision, and it's kind of like in a way a 2D version of Remothered, seemingly, where you have this constant persistent threat looming around every corner, kind of like the stalker enemy design. Think Mr. X and Resident Evil, but just combining all of that with this art style, it's like, god damn, that's really something else, man. So I'm hoping it does damn well. This would be in my A tier. I would put this above, shit, man. I would put it above everything here. Up, yeah, I'd put it below Greedfall 2, but I'd put it above Rise of the Ronin and Stellar Blade. I'm going to rapid fire run through some of these next few titles real quick. We have Lost Solicide. This is from the China Hero project from PlayStation, where they lend some resources to upstart developers in China to kind of bolster that region of game development and create a new hotbed for game developers. Lost Solicide is a character action style game. We've saw quite a bit of gameplay on this one. It was supposed to release in 2023, but I think they're saying early 2024 now, so I think we will see this come out. I'll go C tier. I'd put it, let's see, I'll put it above Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2 and right below Still Wakes the Deep. And then we have Exilage. I hope I'm saying that right. Another in the China Hero project with PlayStation assisting in development. This one I don't think we'll see release in 2024. It's very Returnal, kind of Remnant inspired, kinetic, fast-paced third-person shooter. I'll throw it in the D tier. We need to see a lot more on it. But I'd put it above Flintlock and right below Replaced. Banishers Ghost of New Eden, the next game from Don't Nod, more in the vein of Vampire. I'll go A tier. I do worry about this title, and I didn't even catch this until recently. It's rated T. I don't love that at all. So that pretty much means that you're not going to see much gore taking place. And with this combat, I think that it needs to be chunky and visceral. And I don't know, even with the story, it doesn't make sense for this to be a T-rated game, in my opinion. So that hurts my hype a little bit for this title, and also the fact that it seems that the narrative agency, it's pretty much you're picking one or two options for all of the story beats, for all of the dialogue decisions, or whatever the hell you want to call it. So I don't know, but I do, this style of game speaks to me so much, so I want it to be, a great single player third person action adventure game, a nice tight 15-20 hours, or even less. 8 to 15 hours is probably my preferred runtime for this style of game. But yeah, I'm hoping it delivers. I'll put it above, no, I'll put it below Rise of the Ronin. Tormented Souls 2, the follow-up to one of the games I feel the most guilty about not finishing. That first Tormented Souls game is absolutely beloved by the hardcore horror fans. And yeah, I should have finished that damn thing. But Tormented Souls 2, it looks great. I imagine that it will be great. From all accounts, the first game is great. I'll throw this. I would throw it. I'll throw it at the top of the C tier, actually. I'll put it at the very tippy top of the C tier. Evolutus. I fucking love how this game looks. 80s anime with the art style. You're playing as a MMA world champion, and also she's involved in a life of crime somehow. So you have some 2D action combat taking place while also, you know, branching dialogue options, and it has a very cinematic presentation. And like I said, with all these games, I'll have B-roll rolling and trailers rolling and shit so you can see it, but it is so goddamn stylized. My only thing is that this has been in development for a long time. I think the first time we saw it was in 2020. So will it release in 2024? I hope so. It seems like it's getting closer to the point of actually being a reality. They had a demo of it not too long ago, and people seem to have enjoyed their experience with the demo. So I'm hoping it does launch in 2024. I really want to play this fucking thing. I'll go B tier, but I'll go above Pacific Drive in the B tier, just out of sheer curiosity. I think that game from an art design perspective looks so solid. Metal Gear Solid 3, the remake, Delta, whatever the fuck they want to call it, I'll go C tier. We got a little engine shot, an in-engine teaser, whatever the hell you want to call it. We saw a little bit of gameplay. It looked fine. You know, it looked fine. I'm not expecting great things from Virtuous, the developer making it, but it looked fine. It looked good enough. I'm hoping for the best. I could also see it not releasing in 2024, but yeah, I think it looked fine. It looked, I would say, even better than I expected, maybe. I'll go below The Lost Wild, right above Stalker 2 for MGS3, the remake thing. Penny's Big Breakaway, a classic 3D action platformer coming back to us in 2023. I'll go B tier for Penny's Big Breakaway Adventure. This just it looks so goddamn jolly. It's so vibrant, so colorful, so happy. I think they have like one of the lead creative directors or one of the lead developers on Sonic Mania working on Penny's Big Breakaway, leading up that project. So definitely has some prestigious talent attached to the project. So here's hoping for a huge renaissance in the 3D platformer space. This next game, man, this really caught my eye. It's a game called Indica, and you're playing as a nun who is having these odd religious visions, but it's like mildly humorous, like uncomfortably funny what's taking place in the trailer. And like, I don't know, dude, this shit, it looks so weird, so bizarre. And like I said, that is the type of stuff that really sticks out to me. Shit where I'm like, I've never seen anything like that. I play a lot of goddamn video games, so anytime I see something that makes me go, whoa, that's weird as hell, I'm immediately like 10 times more intrigued. And it's coming from a team called Oddmeter, who they made a VR game called Scarlet. And it was independently developed and published, but it seemed to have reviewed pretty damn well and was received pretty well. And now they have a publisher attached to this project. So it seems like they're getting some more, you know, financial backing and some more stability. So hopefully this will be a big breakout for them. But yeah, I mean, for originality alone, I gotta throw this in the B tier. I would put it above, probably above Black Myth Wukong, right below Silent Hill 2. Sword of the Sea, coming from the artist, the lead artist from Journey and Abzu, and then you definitely see that lineage, that DNA carryover into Sword of the Sea. I'll go C tier. No, I'll go B tier. What am I saying? B tier for Sword of the Sea. It very much is in that vibey, atmospheric, chill adventure game style, but you also got like a little skateboard, sandboard, whatever the hell you want to call it. You're skating around, hovering around on the sand, doing some you got like a little half pipe of sand. You're going up, doing some tricks. Looks fun. So you got some different gameplay hooks tied in there, so it's not just kind of walking around, running around. Got a little bit of something going on in there. Angerfoot, Devolver back at it again with an excellent concept. Kick a door in and shoot a motherfucker in the head. First person shooter combined with door kicking, you can't beat it. Go and B tier. I'll go, I didn't even change Sword of the Sea here. Let's change Sword of the Sea. We'll go Sword of the Sea. Actually, yeah, I would keep Sword of the Sea at the bottom of the B tier. No, I would put it above the Penny Big Breakaway game. And Angerfoot I would also put above Angerfoot I would put above Penny, and I would put above Sword of the Sea. All right, bear with me on these next two. These are two personal picks. I understand this is not for everybody, but WWE 2K24, I gotta go S tier for that bad boy. 2K23 was a hell of an improvement. The best WWE 2K game by a mile. I hope they continue in an upward trajectory. I do know at some point with these yearly annualized releases, there's going to be some game that comes out and there's going to be one of these releases that breaks the trend and starts us down a very fucking slippery slope, and we start to see that snowball rolling down negative hill. And I don't want to get down negative hill because we've been going up positive hill as of late. But at some point, these annualized games, they just end up rolling down negative hill. I'm hoping that this isn't the one. I'm hoping that we do not get to the point where only after 2 goddamn good releases, we slip back into the bullshit. So I'm hoping for the best. I'm keeping my optimism at a decent 7 out of 10. A 7 out of 10 optimism level for WWE 2K24. The career mode for 2023 was excellent. Let's improve that. Let's get that going in the right direction, and then let's clean up that GM mode a little bit, and then we'll be sitting fucking pretty. NCAA football 2024, it is back. Fucking right, it's back. S tier. Gotta throw that bad boy in the S tier, man. I played so much NCAA football as a kid, and even throughout high school and shit. We this was one of our most played games, and in the South, college football is so fucking just humongous, man. And I'm just excited for this to be a part of the culture again, for kids coming up to have an NCAA football game back in the mix. Like that's crucial, and I hope that we can see the continuation of the mini games and stuff that we got in the Madden 24. We got the weightlifting back. We got the 40-yard dash back. Let's have those mini games incorporated into the Road to Glory mode for NCAA 2024, 2025, whatever the fuck they call it. But fuck yeah, let's get back going with some college football video games. If I'm being totally honest, I would put WWE 2K24, my hype for that, I would put above Final Fantasy VII, and I would actually put NCAA 2024, 2025, whatever they call it. I would probably put that above everything on here except Dragon Age Dreadwolf, and from Dragon Age Dreadwolf, The Wolf Among Us 2, and Star Wars Outlaws. I would keep those 3 ahead of NCAA football, but I'm pumped for the return of an NCAA football video game. It's been, by the time it releases, it will have been a decade. That is insane. An entire generation didn't get to grow up with NCAA football. That's like baffling to me. I can't even fathom how that is a reality. That game was synonymous with my youth. That's so goddamn unfortunate that it's been so long. But I'm hoping it's decent. My expectations aren't through the roof. I'm just hoping it's not exactly a copy paste of Madden. I'm sure it will be. Project M. Man. A lot of people think this game is a scam, and I don't agree just because NCSoft is developing and publishing it. And that's so much different than a situation like, what was it, A Day Before the Day, but whatever that game was, which, was definitely sketchy. This is coming from one of the biggest publishers in the world. And I do, but it's the thing where I look at it and I have the same reaction that everybody else has, where I'm like, it does look like a scam. It does look like like it's not a real game. And my theory, I begin wondering, okay, is this actually ever going to come out, or is it just a tech demo? Like the Matrix Unreal Engine 5 tech demo, But I will say, once again, NCSoft has serious cash, and they could fund a weird offshoot passion project, and if they want to be like the premier Unreal Engine 5 example that they're setting as like the top level of what this engine is capable of creating, then fuck, it looks just about like that's what this is. And when you see the third person shooting, when you're seeing the enemies react, you're like, that's just not possible. That's your initial reaction. And I get that, but I don't know, dude. I think this might end up being a real game. I think it really might be. And it's leaning into, the Detroit Become Human branching paths. And then you have Detroit Become Human energy going on. You have Quantum Break energy going on. And then it looks so impressive. If it will ever release, that is up for debate. But in terms of anticipation, if it does release, you motherfucking right. I'll go in the A tier because, I don't think I would put it on par with a lot of that stuff in the S tier, but I would put it in the A tier, and I'd put it above, I would honestly put it above everything in the A tier. I love you, Resistor. I cannot wait to check that out. I think Resistor will actually come out and be a real game at some point. I'm not 1000% sure about that with Project M, but I would have to put it at the top of the A tier. All right, next up we have Open Roads and Annapurna. Published title, nice narrative adventure, a mom and a daughter going off, and then I think they're hunting down treasure or some shit. And I believe in the description that I read, it's like some treasure is better left undiscovered or some shit. So they got a little spice going on. We might have some crazy shit taking place in this story. I love these chill, vibey games. Let me go with a C tier. I haven't seen much on it, but I'll throw this bad boy in the C tier. I will go, you know what, we'll put the Annapurna games right beside one another. I'll put Open Roads right below The Lost Wild. And we got Little Guardsmen. This is they're billing it as a point and click puzzle narrative adventure game, and it looks so fucking cool. You're taking over the shift as like you're guarding the gate to some castle, and it's humorous, it's funny, it's lighthearted, whimsical. I dig it. I dig the shit out of it. I'll once again keep it in the C tier. I know that the studio, I think they just recently had a bunch of layoffs, so that's a bummer, but they're still set out. They're saying that it's going to launch early 2024, so don't think we have long to wait. I'll put this above, actually, yeah, I'll put it above Open Roads and right below The Lost Wild. Ultra Pro Wrestling. If you love the N64 wrestling games of old, boy, do I have a game for you. This shit looks awesome. Ultra Pro Wrestling. The thing that really stood out to me, what I read on the description page on Steam or on the website, wherever the hell I read it, they were talking about the career mode where you get to go in and you can create your own gimmick and you can side with different managers and you can go and work at different promotions and then go, overseas, work here for a little bit, come back, and you can, you got to make sure that the promoters are paying you, and then you can sell your merchandise. Like, there's a bunch of shit going on in this narrative that, while, I do get skeptical when I hear a lot of that stuff, because I'm like, ooh, that is really, really ambitious to pull off with such a small team. But when you look at the gameplay, you're like, oh, these motherfuckers, they got something working, because that's as close to the Aki Engine days of old that I've ever seen with a wrestling game, with that gameplay loop. So absolutely, man, I'm going A tier for Ultra Pro Wrestling for sure. I would go above. But no, I'll go at the bottom of the A tier for Ultra Pro Wrestling. Visions of Mana, the first Mana game, like real, brand new Mana game in over a decade, I believe. And I think it looks fucking awesome. I'll go right below Little Nightmares 3. We got a good chunk of gameplay of this at the Game Awards, and it was very vibrant, super, super pretty, and just the action-oriented gameplay, the action-oriented combat, that spoke to me immediately. You saw some platforming going on, some jumping around, avoiding enemy attacks and shit. It looked really, really fun. So Visions of Mana, you're going at the top of the C tier, right below Little Nightmares 3. Space Marine 2. Give me some Gears of War in 2023. A nice single-player, gory-ass experience. I don't have any knowledge of Warhammer, but I think I'd have to go B tier for this thing. I'll go above Penny's Big Breakaway and right below Sword of the Sea. I think we talked about earlier. I'm so down for nice, tight, single-player campaigns that are not trying to do anything more than what they're trying to do, and giving you just a nice, seamless narrative to run through, to experience. not trying to consume your whole goddamn life, not trying to monetize you, put you in a different costume and then paint your toes for $4.55 and then fucking give you a roguelike experience that you can bang your head against a wall for 800 hours. I don't know. Maybe it's doing all of those things. I don't know. Deathground. We got another dinosaur title, and I'll throw it right in here, the mix with the other dinosaur title. I haven't seen much on Deathground. I actually think I have seen a little bit more of Deathground than I have of the Lost Wild. So we'll go right above the Lost Wild, right below Altars. And this is more gameplay focused seemingly when compared to the Lost Wild, which I think is going to be more narrative driven. With Deathground, you can play through this in co-op and shit, and I assume there's some combat going on. I don't think it's like straight up survival, but yeah, I'll put those two dinosaur games right next to one another. No Rest for the Wicked. This is coming to you from what is it? No Moon. That's No Moon. The Ori team, the team behind Ori and the Will of the Wisp. This is their Diablo inspired title, top down action game. I'm not the biggest fan of that genre. I'll put this in the D tier, but I am really curious to see if the team can pull this off. That's a huge leap forward. You know, if they're able to nail this and get that new player base, get that new audience. And it looks really good from what we saw of it. We got that quick glimpse at the Game Awards, and then it wasn't even a quick glimpse. It was a pretty substantial look at gameplay. You actually do know what the game is going to run like and look like, and it looked impressive for sure. Just not my style of genre per se, but maybe I'll check it out if it goes on a decent sale or drops on Game Pass, which I'm doubting it will, since they're not collaborating with Xbox anymore. Gory Cuddly Carnage. We got some goddamn, we got a cat and a hoverboard, and the cat's shooting at shit. It's gory, cuddly chaos, carnage, and I don't know what else to tell you. It looks fun. It looks right up my alley. I'll go in the seats here. Where will I go? I'll go right above Stalker 2, right below Metal Gear Solid 3. Alright, my people, so that is officially my list of my top 50 or so most anticipated games of 2023. And let's list these bad boys out in order from most to least anticipated. I'm anticipating all of these to some degree, but starting at the top from most anticipated, we have at number 1, Star Wars Outlaws. At number 2, we have The Wolf Among Us 2. At 3, we have Dragon Age Dreadwolf. At 4, we have College Football, whatever the hell, NCAA 2025. At 5, we have Plucky Squire. At 6, we have Avowed. At 7, we have Holston. At 8, we have Crimson Desert. At 9, we have WWE 2K24. At 10, we have Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. At 11, we have Project M. At 12, we have Resistor. At 13, we have Harold Halibut. At 14, we have Hellblade 2. At 15, we have Greedfall 2. At 16, we have Bye Sweet Carol. At 17, we have Stellar Blade. At 18, we have Rise of the Ronin. At 19, we have Banishers Ghost of New Eden. And at 20, we have Ultra Pro Wrestling. At 21, we have Evolutus. At 22, we have Pacific Drive. At 23, we have Silent Hill 2. At 24, we have Indica. At 25, we have Black Myth Wukong. At 26, we have Sandland. 27, Dragon's Dogma 2. 28, Outcast. 29, Alone in the Dark. 30, Angerfoot. 31, Sword of the Sea. 32, Warhammer Space Marine 2. 33, Penny's Big Breakaway. 34, Tormented Souls 2. 35, Little Nightmares 3. 36, Visions of Mana. 37, Altars. 38, Deathground. 39, The Lost Wild. 40, Low Guardsman. 41, Open Roads. 42, MGS 3. 43, Gory Cuddly Carnage. 44, Stalker 2. 45, Still Wakes the Deep. 46, Lost Solicide. 47, Bloodlines 2. 48, Ghostbike. 49, Bounty Star. 50, I the Inquisitor. 51, Towers of Agasaba. 52, Hades 2. 53, Dungeons of Hinterberg. 54, Dustborn. 55, we have No Rest for the Wicked. 56, we have Replaced. 57, we have Exiled. 58, we have Flintlock. And at 59, last place on the anticipation list, we have Suicide Squad. So that is officially my top 59 most anticipated games of 2023. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Hope you found out about a couple games from this video. I tried my best to do some deep dives, to search for some things that were not, the most obvious choices, because if I'm being honest, the most obvious choices of 2024 really aren't that obvious to me. That this isn't the most stacked year that we've ever gotten with video games. I do think that I think we got some good stuff here. I think we definitely, if you kind of look past the AAA titles and you look for some of the indies and double A's, I think you do have some interesting stuff if it pans out. A lot of this on the list, I wouldn't be surprised at all if it slipped out of 2024, but I think at the very least we have some interesting titles on this list. But all in all, do I think 2024 is going to be an incredibly strong year in video game history? Not at all. For one, I think it's incredibly difficult to follow up 2023, but yeah, the more I look over it, the more I think we could be in store for kind of a 2014 style scenario, unless we get some big surprises down the road. But I don't know, even 2014, if you look at it, there was some good shit in 2014. Definitely one of the worst years in video games ever, but those years kind of happen. And this would be a step or two above that, but I think that we are definitely in store for one of the weaker years in video game history. But regardless, we have some interesting stuff here to look over, to talk about, to discuss. So I hope you all enjoyed that. And yeah, man, thank you all so much for tuning in. Like, subscribe, share, comment, all that good shit. Massively helps out the algorithm and gets this out to more people. So I would greatly appreciate all of that good stuff. And yeah, man, take it easy, guys, and I'll see you good people in the next video. Goodbye.